No, it's very, very upsetting, and this week has been really, really hard. We're thinking about all of the four families that sent their children to school and then never coming home again. And I know what they're going through and what they're feeling, and they're devastated. They're hoping that this is just a nightmare and they can wake up and have their family back and have their children back. We know that the latest Secret Service report. Let me just start over. Uh, in the latest U.S. Secret Service report, where they studied 67 averted attacks that were stopped and prevented before anyone was hurt, we see a common theme, and that is that prevention measures put in place, people doing the right thing, can prevent acts of targeted violence. And the best one is see something, say something, and do something. And if you do that, it will save lives. And so we know that this works. We've seen it time and time again. And I want to thank the student that came forward and said something to authorities, and then they were able to arrest the individual that made this horrible threat online. Because I have a lot of friends that have students and children at Marjory, Stoneman, Douglas, and we don't want to see any more tragedy at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. We've already been through enough. We have a mental health crisis right now. We know that our mental health system in Florida is completely broken. The governor has formed a new mental health commission, and I hope that they're going to see a lot of tangible results and recommendations out of that commission to fix our mental health system and get people the help that they need. But we know that students know who's hurting, who's depressed, who's thinking about hurting themselves or hurting others, and that's why after Parkland, we instituted threat assessment teams in all of our schools. Every K through 12 school, a public school in the state of Florida, now has a threat assessment team. They're well trained. And the purpose of these teams is so that when we have threats like this, or when we just have concerning behavior, and we need students and parents to come forward to talk about this so that we can really get these children the help that they need, get them the mental health services that they need. Because we know that all of these home life factors that these children experience throughout the day and throughout the night when they leave school and on the weekends, it stays with them, and they're bringing all this to school. And so, and we know that the terrible effects of COVID, children were isolated and just all they're doing now is consuming social media, negative social media. We know the negative effects of Instagram has on women's self-esteem and causes depression amongst teenagers. So there's a lot of children that are hurting out there, and but if we don't know, we can't help them. So that's why I encourage every child and teacher and parent, if they know someone is hurting, if they know someone's depressed, please let us know that so that we can really help them. When children see their friends getting arrested, that's got to hit home. And I think the campaign was needed because kids need to understand that we take this seriously. We're not messing around anymore. And if you make a threat online, the Broward Sheriff's Office and Sheriff Tony is going to take this very, very seriously, and you're going to be arrested. And so you should definitely think before you post, because we can't take any chances anymore. It's hard. We live in a big country. There's a lot of people here. So the challenge is always, how do you get this message out to everyone? So there's no easy answer, but in South Florida, we're acutely aware and we're hypersensitive to this because of the horrible tragedy that happened almost 4 years ago. But as I travel the country, there's a lot of complacency, Francis, and people do not think it's going to happen in their community. I'm sure Oxford High School did not think that they were going to have a school shooting there, just as we didn't think it was happening in Parkland. but it will, if you do not prioritize safety and security, and you are not taking this seriously, there's a good chance that tragedy is going to befall your community. So the most important thing that all educators need to keep in mind is that if your children and your teachers don't make it home every day, nothing else matters. The last audit that the Broward County Public Schools did of their threat assessment process, I think that was the 2019-2020 school year. There were a high percentage of threat assessments, high-level threat assessments, and high-level threats that did not have an accompanying monitoring plan. So what that means is if a kid makes a threat and then they're doing a threat assessment, there's no monitoring plan of that individual to make sure that they're off their pathway to violence. Things like they weren't checking their backpack to make sure that we're not bringing guns into school. And so I hope that by bringing this audit into the public eye and talking about this, that those things have been fixed, and according to my sources, they have. So I'm glad that the Broward County Public Schools is continuing to do these audits. We need to get a third party to make sure that this is being done right, and these holes are being fixed. So I hope it's being done, and I think it's being done.
Well, that's good to hear. Anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think it's important, just talking about what happened in Michigan, even in that horrible tragedy, what we saw was that some of the lessons learned from Parkland were implemented. They had an SRO in that school. The SRO got to the shooter very, very quickly. And as soon as he got to the shooter put the weapon down. He had, and I think that because of that SRO being on campus and getting to the shooter quickly, they saved lives. The shooter had 11 different bullets in the gun, and would have done a lot more damage and shot a lot more people. So he saved lives. They also implemented the measures that we did after Parkland. They made sure all the doors were locked. They had everybody hide in a safer corner. So they did a lot of the right things that contributed to lives being saved. So it is a little bit of solace to know that even though we couldn't, Alex isn't here, his memory is saving lives around the country.